On September 10th, 2025, what began as a normal afternoon in Mexico quickly turned into a day of unimaginable tragedy. At around 2:20 p.m., a tanker truck carrying over 49,000 liters, roughly 13,000 gallons, of liquefied petroleum gas was making its way along the highway under the Puente de la Concordia overpass. The driver approached a curve that many locals knew could be dangerous, but this time something went terribly wrong. As the truck entered the bend, it began to tilt, then overturned completely. The impact was violent enough to rupture the tank, and within seconds, gas started to leak. Before anyone nearby could react, the vapors ignited, setting off a massive explosion. A fireball rose high above the overpass, followed by a wave of heat and debris that tore through vehicles, pedestrians, and nearby buildings. Firefighters rushed to the scene, battling the flames with foam, while medics tried to treat the injured on the roadside, some using buckets of water or blankets to help people trapped in burning cars. It was a scene of chaos and devastation, vehicles reduced to twisted metal, homes blackened by fire, and entire families caught in the blast. Among those killed was the bus driver, 33-year-old Eric Vicente Acevedo Romero, who had reportedly helped passengers escape through the flames before succumbing to his injuries. The tanker's driver, 34-year-old Fernando Soto Munguia, also died in the explosion. Investigators later found that the tanker had entered the curve at 44 kilometers per hour, only slightly above the posted limit of 40, but it was enough to cause the truck to lose control. The crash and explosion damaged at least 52 vehicles and forced nearby residents to evacuate as smoke and heat filled the area. By the next day, at least 31 people had been confirmed dead, including students, teachers, and children as young as 2 years old. What's disturbing was that authorities warned that the death toll could still rise, as several victims remained in critical condition. Mexico City's prosecutor's office brought together experts in chemistry, fire dynamics, and transport safety, and they concluded that the explosion was primarily caused by human error, specifically the driver's excessive speed and his lack of rest. Records showed he'd taken only a 6-minute break during a 7-hour shift, despite regulations requiring a 30-minute rest after 5 hours of driving. He had also been caught speeding 3 times before, once reaching 108 kilometers per hour on highways limited to 80 for vehicles carrying hazardous materials. The tanker itself was found to be in proper mechanical condition, with no sign of leaks or damage before the crash, and road inspections revealed no potholes or defects. But critics argued that the deeper issue lay with the company that operated the vehicle, Silza, a subsidiary of Grupo Tomza, one of Mexico's largest gas distributors. Silza was accused of poor oversight and failing to ensure its drivers followed safety rules. The company even denied ownership of the truck in the hours following the explosion, despite government records linking it directly to them. It was later revealed that Silza lacked valid insurance at the time of the crash. This wasn't the company's first incident either. It had been tied to several accidents involving LPG transport in the past, raising serious questions about enforcement and regulation in Mexico's fuel distribution industry. The government provided initial financial aid of 20,000 pesos per victim and assigned legal advisors to support the affected families. Later, Silza publicly promised to cover medical and legal expenses, though many saw it as an attempt to deflect blame. In response to the tragedy, the Mexican government announced new emergency safety standards, including speed limiters, GPS tracking for all fuel transport vehicles, QR-coded operating permits, and mandatory tank inspections to prevent future disasters. By nightfall, the highway reopened, but cleanup and investigation continued for days. The explosion left a mark not only on the landscape, but also on the lives of thousands in the area, most of them working-class families already struggling with poor infrastructure and limited safety oversight. Though the legal case may close with the driver's death, many continue to call for accountability from Silza and the larger Tomza group, demanding that the government enforce stricter monitoring of high-risk transport operations. end, it was a tragedy born from a small act of negligence. A few extra kilometers per hour, a few minutes too little rest, and yet the cost was immense. Dozens of lives lost, homes destroyed, and families forever changed, all because safety rules that should have protected everyone were not followed. On September 25, 2025, a 31-year-old man known by his surname Hong was climbing Nama Peak in the Gongga mountain range in Sichuan province, China. It was meant to be a normal ascent, a routine climb on one of the region's well-known mountains, but a simple decision that day would cost him his life. You see, Nama Peak, also called Namafeng or Noshma Peak, stands at an elevation of 5,588 meters, about 18,333 feet, and is considered an entry-level technical climb. It draws mountaineers from around the world for its views and moderate challenge, especially between May and November, when the snow and weather conditions are most stable. Hong, who was from Shaojin County, held a climbing assistant certificate, but had no professional guiding experience. He had joined a small group making their way toward the summit of Nama Peak that morning. Everything was going as planned until they reached an altitude of roughly 5,300 to 5,588 meters. There, near a crevasse, Hong decided to take a photo, or possibly to help others with one. To do that, he unclipped his safety harness, and in that small moment, the line that stood between him and danger was gone. Standing on the icy slope, he tried to move, but his crampons caught the snow awkwardly. Without using an ice axe for balance, he stumbled, lost his footing, and fell. Witnesses later said he slid headfirst down the steep, snow-covered slope, dropping somewhere between 100 to 200 meters before coming to a stop. His group could only watch in shock. Some of the footage recorded on video shows their desperate reaction, calling his name, looking down the slope, realizing there was nothing they could do. Rescue teams later confirmed that Hong had died from the fall. His body was transported to Gongga Mountain Town for recovery and formal identification. Initial investigation revealed that the group had been climbing without the required permits, something that raised questions about their preparation and awareness of the risks. Police have since launched a full investigation into the incident, including the group's violation of local climbing regulations. Experts later analyzed the tragedy, pointing to several key factors that contributed to the accident. The decision to unclip the harness near an exposed section was the most critical one, a clear breach of mountaineering safety rules. The absence of an ice axe for self-arrest made the situation even worse, as it could have allowed him to stop his slide once he began to fall. Local officials explained that if Hong had stayed attached to the safety line or used the correct climbing technique, the accident might have been prevented. Online, the incident sparked debate about the growing trend of risky behavior for photos and social media. Many called it another sad example of how a single moment of distraction, even from experienced climbers, can lead to irreversible consequences in such unforgiving conditions. Honestly, this group shouldn't have been there without proper permits or supervision, and removing safety equipment, even for just a quick picture, turned out to be a mistake that cost Hong his life. Domestic violence is sadly common in many marriages, but when it turns into something more violent, the results can be devastating and often irreversible. Kimberly Nicole Perkins Clark was a 27-year-old mother of 4 living in Louisiana. She was married to Sam Clark Sr., who was 52 at the time, a man much older than her, and someone who, according to police reports, treated her more like property than a partner. Their relationship had long been marked by control and abuse. In October 2015, Sam called the police to report missing money, accusing Kimberly of using drugs.
911, where's your emergency?
I need somebody to come to 8600 Chauvin Lane as soon as possible. She has money in her pocket, which she's not supposed to have. I got $500 to out of my rug cabin. Okay, and I want to find out what's going on. You're not leaving. You're not leaving. Kim, don't leave this house. Kim, don't leave this house because you know you're doing wrong.
Okay, what's your name, sir?
My name is Sam Clark, and she's walking out of the house with my baby.
But when officers arrived, things took a darker turn.
I want a drug tester, and I want to find out what the hell's going on. I want to find out where my money's going.
He grabbed me around my throat and choked me and twisted my leg to where it almost broke, I'm telling you.
Wouldn't that happen last week?
No. tonight.
To find out where the $10 come from and the cigarettes.
What's wrong? You don't
That's
let it.
all I want.
He doesn't let me do
Stop
anything.
now. What's wrong? You don't let her have no money? She can't have no money?
Yeah, she can have money anytime she wants.
Then why are you worried about where her $10 come from in her
Because
purse?
I want to know. Because I got $500 missing out my house.
During their conversation, one of the officers pulled Kimberly aside and quietly asked if there had been any violence at home. She admitted that her husband had held a loaded gun to her head the previous night.
He put a gun in my head the other night. I'm not gonna say nothing about that, but he put a loaded gun to my head and threatened to shoot me. And you know what? I wasn't scared. I was ready for it to happen.
Even then, when officers asked if she wanted to press charges, she refused. Despite the visible marks on her neck and the fear in her voice, she chose to protect him. The police, however, decided to act on their own and arrested Sam that night.
Stop. Turn
For what?
around.
Watch out.
What you want to arrest me
Remington,
for?
why are y'all arresting him?
Why are y'all arresting me?
Wait,
Do not do this.
why are y'all arresting him?
Domestic violence.
Domestic violence.
No.
It's pretty
No,
obvious
it is
she
a
was
hickey.
grabbing around the throat.
Finger marks on
Yeah,
both
it is a f***ing hickey. It's two of them. One in the back of her neck and one in the front of her
Okay.
neck.
What about the other day when you put a gun to her head?
I ain't put no f***ing gun on her head.
But in court, Kimberly later changed her story. She recanted her statement, and as a result, Sam's charges were reduced to a misdemeanor. In May 2016, he was sentenced to 6 months in jail, a punishment far too light for what had really been happening behind closed doors. This pattern of abuse and recantation is tragically common in domestic violence cases. Victims often withdraw out of fear, confusion, or emotional dependence, and Kimberly was no exception. Even as she tried to move forward, it was clear she was living in constant fear.
Do you want to be on the news as a statistic, meaning another domestic female gets killed because she feared to leave? Is that what you want?
No.
Because honestly, this is where it's going.
When Sam was released, they relocated together, but the abuse didn't stop. It continued quietly, growing worse, until it reached its final breaking point. On March 28, 2016, Sam Clark shot Kimberly twice in the back of the head on a spillway bridge in Palmetto, St. Landry Parish. He then threw her body over the bridge into a canal, where she drowned, still alive when she hit the water. He disposed of the gun and initially denied any involvement, but later confessed under questioning. Her body was recovered the next day, and an autopsy confirmed the 2 gunshot wounds to her head had contributed to her death, but drowning was the final cause. She even had written on Facebook the night before saying, "If I die, say Sam Jr., her husband's first name." Sam Clark was arrested on March 29, 2016, and charged with second-degree murder, but at his trial in September 2018, he tried to change the story again. He claimed it was not murder, but manslaughter, that he had acted out of sudden passion, saying he'd been provoked after learning Kimberly was planning to leave him. Under Louisiana law, manslaughter refers to a killing committed in the heat of the moment, and although his defense tried to use that to lessen the sentence, the court still recognized the severity of his actions. Sam Clark received the maximum 40-year prison term, a sentence later upheld on appeal.
You get these cases, you work them over the years, and you hope for the best. You never hear nothing about it, and this one slaps you back in the face 6-8 months later, and unfortunately she's dead.
Honestly, Kimberly Perkins' death was preventable. She was a victim of ongoing abuse that was ignored for too long. By the time action was taken, it was already too late. And while her killer is now behind bars, justice came too late to save her life. And her case stands as a reminder of how dangerous silence can be in situations of domestic violence. Zhana Kusainova was a 48-year-old woman from Russia, living a quiet and ordinary life in the city of Kazan, the capital of Tatarstan. She was married, a mother to a 15-year-old daughter, and worked as a cashier at a local supermarket. Before that, she had been trained as an aviation engineer, a profession that reflected her intelligence and discipline. Kazan is a large and busy city, home to over 1 million people, and like many cities across Russia, it struggles with the growing issue of stray animals, especially dogs that wander freely near industrial areas and old, unsecured shelters. In early November 2024, Jana left her home in the morning, heading to work as she always did. There was nothing unusual about that day, the same streets, the same quiet walk, until suddenly everything changed. While walking near an industrial site close to her route, Jana was surrounded and attacked by a pack of stray dogs. She tried to call for help, managing to dial emergency services in the middle of the attack, her voice frightened and breaking, shouting for help, and behind her, the barking grew louder. But the call did not save her. What's even worse was the emergency operator, struggling to hear through the noise and the poor connection, misheard her cries and asked if a sauna was on fire. Moments later, the line went dead. By the time police were alerted and arrived at the scene, it was already too late. They found her body hours later, after dark, lying on wasteland near the industrial area. She had suffered severe injuries. Her body was covered in bite wounds, one of her legs had been severed, and her scalp was missing. There were even teeth marks left on her boot. The dogs suspected of the attack were later captured and euthanized, though by then, it changed nothing. Authorities launched an investigation, and by November 2024, Kazan's deputy mayor, Iskander Giniyatulin, asked residents to remain calm while offering condolences to Jana's family. But even as of October 2025, no new findings or significant updates have been made public. Jana's family continues to live with the loss, and many people in Kazan still talk about that morning, how something as simple as walking to work turned into something no one could have imagined. Honestly, she couldn't have done anything in that moment, but if the emergency operator had understood her call and help had arrived in time, maybe she could have survived.